Alright, it's time for your regular reminder. It's okay to be hyped. Let's go. Alright, so for this video, I want to talk all about Stray, the new game where you play as a cat from Annapurna Interactive. This game, from the beginning, when it was first announced, looked interesting to me, and that's for a number of reasons. So here's their description, let me read it to you, and then we'll get into why I'm excited for this game. The player controls a stray cat who falls into a world populated by robots and ventures to return to his family. They must solve puzzles to progress the narrative, including moving obstacles and traversing platforms. The player is accompanied by a drone companion named BlueTwelve, who can assist by translating the language of the robots and storing items found throughout the world. One of the game's enemies are Zurks, who will attack the player in vicious swarms. Alright, so for starters, this game has been developed by BlueTwelve Studio. If you're not sure who they are, that's because they're pretty much an unknown. They haven't developed anything except for this game. They broke off from Ubisoft, these two developers, to create the studio to make this game, which they had been working on kind of on their own independently. So Annapurna Interactive saw the footage the early footage in 2016 and said, hey, we want to publish this for you. So they approached them, made a deal, and now they've been working on it. It's been 6 years and the game's getting ready to finally release. What I like about this is some of the background for the inspiration for this game. So first of all, they started the game around the idea of gameplay of being a cat. And the inspiration was the two devs' cats, Riggs and Murtagh. It's Mel Gibson and Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon. But they really wanted to create the core of this is fun to play as a cat, and then they built the platforming and puzzles and design of the levels based on that gameplay, which I think is a great way to approach building a game, especially a new experience like this. So you get the core gameplay, then you build around that. I think that's awesome. Now, another cool aspect of this is the city aesthetic. So if you look at the game, it looks very kind of cyberpunk, right? These back alleyways of a futuristic city where you have robot bums and stuff hanging around in the alleys. Very interesting, very kind of dark, futuristic. The city aesthetic, they've said, is inspired by the Kowloon Walled City. I didn't know much about this, so I had to look it up. Now, the Kowloon Walled City was actually demolished about 20 years ago. It did exist for a long time, for decades and decades, and around World War II, the population of this area spiked. Now, what this was is it used to be an old Chinese military fort, and then it began, once that was no longer the use for it, people began to live there, and then the population spiked. As many as 50,000, I say at one point, in like a 6-acre space, and you can see the way that it's high-rise. It's built apartments and houses upon houses. For about 30 years there, the 50s to 70s, was highly controlled by local triads with lots of illegal activity going on, a lot of violence. And so this city, this walled area actually within the larger Kowloon city, is just its own little space. It's a very unique kind of section of history right there in that city. And that was the inspiration for this. Now it's, of course, a park. It's been leveled, it's been demolished, and now it's a nice park, and they kept some artifacts and elements for folks to come and see. So that's where this game is happening, is in a city inspired by Kowloon Walled City. I love that backstory. So here's the 3 reasons that I'm hyped for this game. Number 1, the gameplay is the foundation. They built this game around the idea of being a cat, and they wanted that to be the gameplay. So they fine-tuned those elements. Obviously, they took their time getting it right and using actual cats as inspiration, and they built that gameplay first. And when you do that, I think you're much more likely to have an end product that is high quality, because gameplay was core. Number 2 is the inspiration for the setting. Not only were they inspired by the cats for the gameplay, but they were inspired by this Kowloon Walled City, this very unique little section of our planet that they wanted to create in a game setting. Of course, a fictionalized version of it. And I thought that was a really interesting backstory of how they came up with the setting, but then they decided, let's make it futuristic. We got these robots that are in this city, and the idea from the outset is the cat falls somehow into this walled city and has to escape. And so the cat doesn't belong, is trying to get back home. I think the inspiration for that setting is really interesting. And lastly, of course, playing as a cat looks super fun. Not a whole lot of games allow you to play as a cat. I mean, some games have let you play as a dog, I suppose. You got your okamis, but even that, it's not something we get to do very often. So I think it's really interesting that we get to play as a cat. As long as we get to knock breakable things off of ledges, I think we'll be good. I think this will be fun. Another bonus reason to be excited for this is that if you're a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber, you get to download for free and try it out. And even if you're not, it's a pretty budget title at $30 total. At one point, I believe this was the most wishlisted game on Steam, so the marketing is doing its job. They're getting the word out there. It's being promoted in the right ways, and it's getting eyes on it. So I think this game is going to do quite well, and I'm excited for the team. I'm excited to play this game. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Stray? Thanks for watching.